Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was great. We had a good time. Enjoyed that immensely. Today, I'm going to begin in 1 Kings chapter 11, if you want to turn there. I hope to, possibly beginning next week, we'll pick back up on Moses and try to finish out on Moses on the document that I handed out to you, if you still have that. Let's see here. Our nation has been involved in, if you've been watching the news, you've seen what has happened over in Iran. Amazing abilities of our nation, the war machine, the things that can be done and be accomplished. We pray for President Trump, Vice President Vance, all those that are working, that are part of his cabinet. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. Good morning.
Just thankful that we have this type of leader at this time. The last time we had a leader, I think, that was on his same level was Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
And so anyway, we need to pray for these people. And evil doesn't know how to retreat. It just finds another avenue. It lurks in the darkness. The Bible tells us that Satan, he goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. I found a quote from a gentleman that stood out to me, prompted some of my thinking. Of course, I remembered this as I was making preparations for today. This gentleman, he was from somewhere in eastern North Carolina. I didn't know that much about him. Dennis Kinlaw. Have you ever heard of him? I don't know if you have. But anyway, he wrote, "Satan disguises submission to himself under the ruse of personal autonomy. He never asked us to become his servants. Never once did the serpent say to Eve, 'I want to be your master.' The shift in commitment is never from Christ to evil. It is always from Christ to self. And instead of his will, self-interest now rules. And what I want reigns. And that is the essence of sin." That's what he wrote. As I was thinking throughout the week, and then all of a sudden we see yesterday about what had happened over in Iran, I had been reading and thinking about Moses, getting back into Moses. Lord willing, we'll do that next week. And I was thinking about our leaders, those who lead us, those God has appointed, God has anointed to be in a position that we look up to them, that we follow them. They give us instruction. They give us words of encouragement, things of that nature. And Moses was a wonderful, wonderful leader. They didn't know what they had until they lost him. And that's typically the way it is. Then the people of Israel wanted a king. We want to be like everybody else. We got to have us a king. Give us a king. And so we know the story of Saul and then David, and how God had put David up in place, and Samuel anointed him, and David was 15 years waiting to assume the role, and he finally was placed in that position. And then he had a promise from the Lord that there would always be somebody from your lineage, or you'll have a place, even if there's a gap in those who are born from you. There's still going to be somebody from your line that's going to make it. And so anyway, so Solomon becomes king. Solomon, blessed with all the knowledge and wisdom that God would give to this man. No one has ever lived on this earth that had the wisdom that had the understanding that Solomon had. And because of that, God brought in riches. His wisdom, his counsel caused people to seek him out. People come from long distances to see him. Then we find that he apparently was sought after by many. Then either he was either being chased by ladies, or he had the eye that was looking at ladies. Poor man lost something when he started going after so many women and having so many wives. And then we find in 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 4, it says, "For when Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away to follow other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of his father David had been. For Solomon became a follower of Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and of Milcom, the abhorrent idol of the Amorites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow the Lord fully, as his father David had done. So then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abhorrent idol of Moab, on the mountain that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abhorrent idol of the sons of Ammon. He also did the same for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods." One more. "Now the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him regarding this thing, that he was not to follow other gods, and he did not comply with what the Lord had commanded." We need to pray for our leaders. I don't know how often you put it in your prayer repertoire, if it just comes up and it's on your mind. But I think it do us well to pray for our leaders and make it part of our prayer life on a regular basis. Because we see the impact that when a leader chooses to go in a direction because his heart has been turned, then he began to build things because the influences in his personal life affected the nation. It trickled down. And so we need to pray for the hearts of our leaders to be guarded. Now, they're never going to line up and be 100% the way that we think they ought to fly. I don't know that anybody is. I have a lot of opinions on how I think somebody ought to choose and walk and do, but I can't impose my will on those choices. They have to, obviously, we can't do that. We are responsible for our own choices. I just pray that I make choices, I make decisions that impact those that my life touches, that is for the good, that is for the betterment. And the Lord's still working on me. I need a lot of help. We all need a lot of help. And so Solomon had all these wives, and it impacted him in such a way, we read what was happening here. And of course, all this has to do with me putting the emphasis on praying for our leaders. Well, Solomon, he dies. When Solomon dies, the kingdom gets divided. His son, Rehoboam, becomes king of Judah in the south. And then Jeroboam, who was an advisor or one who had worked in Solomon's cabinet, I guess you could say. The Lord had a word from Abijah, I believe it was, that he was going to give, take some tribes away and give them to Jeroboam, because Solomon had not followed the Lord fully. And because of that, well, Solomon got kind of, well, I don't like this, so he tried to kill Jeroboam. Jeroboam takes off and goes to Egypt. He stays in Egypt. until he hears about Solomon dying, and then he comes back. Well, Rehoboam, Solomon's son, whenever it came time for him to do his thing, he sought the advice of the elders and those that he had grown up with. The elders said, the people have been taxed. The people have a burden on them because of it became more of a burden later on. The luxurious lifestyle that Solomon had became a burden to the people because they're the one, it was on their backs, a lot of this stuff, not to mention the things that were brought in there. And so Rehoboam, he doesn't listen to the elders. He wants to talk to his high school buddies, the ones he grew up in junior high, whatever. And they said, pour it on even more. And he says, my dad, his waist wasn't as big as my finger, my little finger. And he said, he beat you with whips. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to torture you or beat you with scorpions, something to that effect. And so he makes it even harder. So on the people, Jeroboam, he comes back. He's trying to talk to Rehoboam about what's going on, and the word of the Lord came to, once again, through Abijah, I think it was. And Jeroboam, you're going to make you king, and we'll give you some. And the Lord says to Jeroboam, if you follow after me, if you do what I've directed you to do, I will establish your name. You'll have a dynasty for the rest of your life. That which follows you. Well, guess what Jeroboam did? He didn't follow the Lord. He felt like he needed to go, he was going to worship idols, and he felt like because of the people that were with him. Now let's see, Jeroboam was king in the north. Rehoboam was king in the south. Rehoboam had two tribes, Benjamin and Judah. Yeah, that was a given, wasn't it? Jeroboam had the 10 tribes in the north, but the place of worship in Jerusalem was in Jeroboam was so convinced that the people were going to leave him that he set up worship centers in Bethel and Dan, set up golden calves. He selected priests that were not from the tribe of Levi. And then he chose idolatry. And so, because of that, obviously, he turned his heart from the Lord. And because of his heart being turned, it infects and affects the people. I don't know about you, but even the small things that we choose that for entertainment by our leaders, and sometimes I don't know how that goes, but years ago when they had this, of course, Halloween, there's a lot of different opinions about Halloween and how that's to be observed or not observed. You have varying opinions on it, but Tanya and I always love to go to Centenary and walk up and down there before it gets dark and look at the children, be there to see the children enjoying themselves or whatever. And then you have these adults who insert themselves in this celebration that take it just a little bit further than it needs to go. And it's disappointing. However, you see some cute little things run into people. And then we would go to the block party. We did it one time. One time was enough. I don't know who sanctioned that, but it seems when it gets dark, the crazies come out. The lunatics begin to, savages get wild or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it, but it just doesn't seem right that the city with spirit would have that type of, let it to go to that extent. We haven't been there in years, so I don't know what they do now. Hopefully it's not as bad as it was that time we went. I have to say there was one costume I really liked when I went down there to the black party. Somebody was walking around like Osama bin Laden with a bullet hole right there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Well, sad that that man lost his life, but anyway, that was the only costume that really stood out to me. So, I'm telling you things that you don't, that are quite simple and easy for you to arrive at in your thinking. When we get to 2 Chronicles chapter 12, let's turn over there if you would. Second Chronicles 12. Well, the pages will quit sticking together. I think I can get there. Verse 1. When the kingdom of Rehoboam was established and strong, he and all Israel with him abandoned the law of the Lord. And it came about in King Rehoboam's 5th year, because they had been unfaithful to the Lord, that Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. And so God turned them over to invading armies and things of that nature. And then you'll notice in 2 Chronicles 15, now the Spirit of God came on Azariah, the son of Oded, and he went out to meet Asa, and said to him, now this is Asa who had been appointed. Let's see here. And all Judah and Benjamin, listen to me, Asa and all Judah and Benjamin, the Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will let you find him. If you abandon him, he will abandon you. For many days Israel was without the true God, and without a teaching priest, and without the law. But in their distress they turned to the Lord God of Israel, and they sought him, and he let them find him. The Lord wants us to find him, doesn't he? Have any of you ever been away from your family system before for a period of time in the world? And then you realize the community, the Christian community that you were in, how blessed you were to have that Christian community. I remember in basic training, riding down there, flying down there, first of all, that was a trip in itself. From Charlotte, first time I ever been on a big jet, flew to San Antonio, Texas. Get off there Friday evening, bunch of guys, by about 9 o'clock that night, we're all standing on these yellow dots they got painted on them. Put your right foot on there and don't move. And then you're seeing all these people, these other guys from all over the country coming to go through basic training. And then Sunday comes. Well, got there, and so late Friday, all these long-haired young boys didn't have access to primping and getting their hair fixed. You had to get up so early, so whatever you slept on, whatever your hair did, that's what you wound up with. So you go to chapel. You have to get up and go to chapel on Sunday morning. That was a sight to behold. Your hair doing whatever. And then all those that had their head shaved, well, look at them. So we sat in the chapel, and I thought, no, this is different than anything I've ever experienced at North Belmont. This is different. So Monday morning we hit the barber chairs. That was one of the greatest feelings I ever had. Didn't have to worry about dealing with that long hair no more. Wasn't going to be made fun of. Got your clothes on, you blended in with everybody else. Believe it or not, they called you rainbows until you got your greens. Well, that would have a very negative effect today. So if you get all this, we're all looking the same, and then I remember we're going to march. Teach you how to march. And then you're learning the people around you in the bunch. You're learning where they're from, how they live, wherever they're from. And then everybody seems to be made great commitments and seem to be pretty good. Nobody is a big in trouble or nothing like that. Somebody that rough if you join the Air Force. And I remember we're standing in formation one day, and the sergeant decided, he said, all right, those of you who want a smoke break, you can step out of formation and go over there to the side and have a smoke. There went but one guy that went over there. If you didn't smoke, you had to stand in formation. The next time, about 20 more just peeled off with that guy and leaved on with just few. And then the next time, everybody except maybe 8 or 10 of us, and I was one of them. I don't smoke, and I ain't going to smoke. And the sergeant said, well, y'all just go ahead and go over there. So there's some influence to do those things. Then you go from there and you just start seeing things. You start, in your training, you realize, I miss a good, godly community. I miss that. And the Air Force is only, and the military is only provide so much. They have chaplains who do their job. That's the one thing I enjoy about, I didn't realize that much about chaplaincy. And of course, that's an expert right there. He can tell us a lot about that. I didn't realize that each denomination could be represented. And so whenever I had been part of testing them over here, and those that would say, I'm Pentecostal, I had only one time, one guy came through, the one going to the military, and he said, I'm Pentecostal. And I said, can you tell me what are the Pentecostal distinctives that make Pentecostalism what it is to you? He couldn't do it. Richard Pace over there, we need to get this guy in. No, absolutely not. And so I held it up. I was the odd man out. Dr. Slocum was on the committee. There was others, and I said, no. If he's going to be Church of God and Pentecostal, then he better fly the colors strong to let people know. If the Baptist guy is going to look Baptist and they know he's Baptist, if the Catholic guy is going to be Catholic and they know he's Catholic, then by golly, we better not let this fella go until we know he's got it. And so graduation's coming up, and I said, you got 3 months, and you better have it right, because I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. And so, in their wisdom, they let me handle that, and he did. He finally made the grade, went on and done his thing. And and then more and more, as I was there going through the military thing, you see these things. And as I reflected back, looking at leaders and feeling how far removed you are from your system, there was nothing like being back home after I got my training done. There was nothing like being back in the community of believers. There's nothing that you can think of that would replace unless there were spirit-filled people around you. Now, mind you, God helped me to win this young guy, Matthew Smith. I don't know where he's at. He was from California, but God helped me to win that guy to the Lord. And the one thing that I carried in my pocket was a New Testament that Dad gave me, and I carried it the whole time until Matthew got saved. I gave it to Matthew because he didn't have a Bible. I knew I was going home, and I knew there's plenty of Bibles at home. Our leaders have a strong impact, as we know how things have been in the previous administration in this country. We've seen the effect of evil. Doesn't it not push us? Should we not be praying even more now that God, please don't let this ever happen again? Congress, senators, our civil leaders, God put in righteous men and women to lead in these places. Proverbs 4:23 says, watch over your heart with all diligence, For from it flows the springs of life. In Proverbs 23 and 19, it talks about directing your heart in the way. And I began to think about our leaders. Even more so, and then last night. Wow, what happened over there? And of course, that's not the end of it for Iran. There's some other kind of nut that if they take care of Khomeini, there'll be someone else in the wings that'll step up and want to carry it out. And not to mention those who we're not in war with right now, that Xi Jinping over there in China, they're watching. They're watching what's going on. And unless the Lord gets a hold of his heart. Lord, turn the hearts of our leaders. Guard their hearts as you guard our hearts. But guard theirs. Touch our pastor and his family. Protect him from the influences that would turn his heart in the way that it shouldn't go. Touch our governor, our mayor. Touch the leaders in the Church of God organization. In every part that we're a part of, our high school, the teachers, the middle school, the elementary schools. There's a lot that we could pray about that we need to take to heart ourselves and pray about, because we never know what evil is lurking when someone's heart has been turned in the wrong way and they're in leadership, and how it will affect us. You are praying folks. I know you are. You are praying folk. And I pray that God would put on your heart what he has placed on mine to pray for these leaders. Any contributions, any rebuttals?
Speaking of it's embarrassing to me that I didn't realize how corrupt our government was until the exposure. To be honest with you, I didn't, because I refused to listen to Obama or Biden when they started speaking. I turned it, And I heard a thing one time, and this may not be applicable, but government is a tool God uses for his purpose.
Amen.
And I tell people, they said, how's that related? I said, look at Paul. He got imprisoned. Had he gone back to Israel, he'd have been killed. Look at all the books he wrote because he was placed in prison.
Yeah, that's right.
Diane found a piece on Facebook this week and showed it to me where a Christian singer accompanied by a cello and a violin and a guitar was in the White House having psalm service devotions in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, did you see that?
They were
I
worshiping.
think it was every
They were
day.
worshiping. Mhm.
Trump brought it back, he's allowing that now.
Yeah.
He's put a special room that they can go do that.
They were worshiping,
Yeah.
truly worshiping.
I guess there were staff members or cabinet members, whoever wanted to be, it looked like there was 30, 40 people in there singing and praising God. And it's every morning Trump invites some religious singer to have chapel in the White House. Choices have consequences,
Yes.
good or bad.
I know I saw Trump say this specifically on an interview. He says, I know he owns some type of brewery or a winery or something like that, but he says, I never drink alcohol. He says, I just do not do that. So that's making a statement that I feel that he's trying to go in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because he publicly made that statement. He says, I don't indulge in alcohol.
If you'd come down here and attend this class for 1 year, I think we could make a big difference in his life.
He'd get our opinions anyway, wouldn't
I think we could help him.
Your words are wonderful. We need to heed them. We pray for Trump every night, but you've encouraged us to pray for the governor and others as well. So appropriate. And Lord have mercy. I'm concerned about our nation. We need to pray for revival. I don't know what will become of us and our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, whatever. We really need God to turn these things around. very badly.
It's so
So I
divided.
appreciate all that you have said.
Yeah.
There's such division and such hatred, but it's amazing, it's amazing.
There's such ungodliness.
Well, when evil, for me, when evil gets a stronghold, a foothold, the devil's gonna fight tooth and toenail.
Yeah.
I think your news media creates a lot of the corruption just to say, hey, we got something to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're always, like in watching Caroline Levitt, they'll be in there and they'll ask her one question, one reporter will ask her a question, and not no more than 2 minutes later, another reporter will ask the same question. She says, I just answered that. These are supposed to be educated people, and they act like they're first graders.
It's an agenda.
Yep.
It's an agenda that's behind it.
Right.
Yep.
I appreciate your challenge, though.
It's an agenda.
Yep.
And so, any other, I don't want to not give you an opportunity, any other comments or thoughts? Yes, Brother Al.
I was shocked when Obama went into the White House the first Christmas. He decorated the tree with communism. Chairman Mao's picture he hung on the Christmas tree. Very repugnant, wicked.
Yeah, well, it happened before that, when Clintons were in the White House the first year. Hillary, there's about 8 or 10 Christmas trees in the White House in different rooms. Hillary decorated one of the Christmas trees with the most abominable things. And there's a book called Unlimited Access, if you can find it. It's by a guy named Gary Aldrich. He was the Secret Service. He was the FBI agent in the White House, and he wrote a book called Unlimited Access. Tremendous book. But Hillary Clinton decorated a Christmas tree in the 90s that would just turn your stomach. I sat down on a flight to Zurich, Switzerland, and read that book in 9 hours. Didn't put it down.
There's choices to be made. There's the influx of evil all around us, most notably in the Islam faith. Dearborn, Michigan, I don't know if you know about it, but
It's all Islam.
it's inundated. I saw you last night in France and in Italy, women who are tired of being approached by Islamic men have taken pigs as pets. So you get out and walk your dog, they'll get out and walk the pig, and they'll leave them alone.
Very clever.
What is the reasoning behind it? I don't understand your reason.
It's because a pig is unclean, it's foul, it's repugnant to them. Pork. We had a student years ago from Pakistan, Church of God, and he came to me because I would order up the lunches for a particular class that they had, and I'd get subs from Quiznos and stuff like that, and so one of the sandwiches had bacon on it, and so he came to me one day and he said, and all the sandwiches had bacon on it. I didn't know it because I don't eat them. I just, hey, Roger, give me these sandwiches here. And so he said, can we please have sandwiches with no bacon? And I said, sure, that's not a problem. He said, because bacon, and I said, stop right there. There was a sheet let down, and there was a prophet that was seeing all that. And he said, it's all unclean, so don't go there. I love my pork, and I think the Lord has allowed me to eat that. But in those cultures, it's taboo. So,
Is that the Muslim culture?
Yes.
yeah.
There's another book called A Wind in the House of Islam. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Tremendous book on what God's doing in the Islamic countries. A Wind in the House of Islam.
Mm.
And Chris did some research on Islamic activity because it's coming to Brazil. And what they do is they'll infiltrate, put a few Islamic families in a place, and they'll be very meek and quiet until they get a majority. When they get a majority, they turn the dogs out. And then, like they did in Dearborn, they get a majority, and then they get somebody on the city council, and then they got a mayor, and then they've got the prayer horns going off. They're very quiet when they're starting out, but they're lethal after that.
Yeah.
That's happening all over Europe.
Yeah.
And they're trying it in America. They're starting in places like Dearborn.
Yeah.
But read Wind in the House of Islam. It's a very, very good book.
Mm. Well, I'm at the end of my material. Thank you guys for everything. I will say that we got some birthdays this week. Have there been any other birthdays this month that anybody's had a birthday? I know Ron.